Hey, you guys. Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm Jeneth Lyanca, and this is my co-host, Lyanca Reina, and this is the Hot Hustle Show. Today, we're talking with Masami Covey, and she's going to enlighten us on the dark moon and our cycles, and also want to talk with her a little bit about metabolic energy. I've read something on her site and I was like, what? But it's always that about you. It's always like, wow, she just takes everything a whole lot deeper. I wanted to share, Masami, we met on my show last November. And if you do sign up, you guys, for the extra pass to get all the recordings, you also will get the recordings from our event last November. She was just blew my mind. And there's something about her that makes you feel like you just want to give her a really warm hug as she completely rocks your world, both in the real world, how to change things in a real, nutrition, functional nutrition kind of way, as well as the energetics of the, entire system. I mean, I know that that wasn't as clean as I could have said it, but that's how it is. So Masami, welcome. Was it good? All right.
Fantastic. Thank you, you two beautiful women.
Thank you.
And it's the third day, and you look even more gorgeous than the first day. So that I don't know how you do it.
Thank you. Well, we are going to talk the dark moon and moon cycles and a little bit of menopause stuff too today. Masami, I would like to start with the dark moon. You sent me a text and you're like, we need to talk about the dark moon. And I was actually going to just jump on the phone with you right then. And I was like, no, I think this is something that we need to share with all the audience. So I would love for you to step in and start
What day
there.
was that she sent the text?
Was that like Tuesday or was that like Monday? Maybe
Of this
Monday.
week? Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
Oh, are you talking about dark moon? When is it starting?
Yep.
No, when
No,
you sent the text about dark moon, I was just trying
yeah,
to see what
because
the energy
you
was.
said we're in that cycle now, and I kind of got a vibe that I was like, jump, I want to hear it. And then I was like, no, wait. I want to hear it on the actual call. I feel like everyone needs to hear this. So I'm
Yeah, well, I think I was texting you saying that we are still going to be talking about the dark moon,
Mhm.
and the dark moon actually starts today.
Oh,
oh,
fascinating.
Today.
Oh,
That's
then
why,
that might have
exciting.
been why we scheduled it for
right,
today
right.
back in December.
Right. Because we looked at the calendar and I said, this is the dark moon period I want to be on then. So today is the start of this beautiful dark moon phase. And I don't know, many of you do pay attention to the dark moon phase, but it's probably the most important phases, out of all the phases of the moon cycles, I think, especially for perimenopause, menopause, and postmenopausal women,
Yeah.
because this is really the time that you can feel that connection to her energy, meaning the moon's energy, far more than the new moon or even the full moon. New moon is kind of like, I would say, an anomaly, of the moon cycles. So new moon set aside for this gorgeous practice that you can bring in, but dark moon is leading up to the new moon, right? And this is the time that I like to start the moon journey from the dark moon. And I like to begin by ending things. And we're not very good at ending things, like if you look back at your history, like I can tell you, I'm not good at ending. I do not. Traumatizing for me to say goodbyes to people because I had to say goodbye in a very awkward ways so many times in my childhood, having to move across Pacific Ocean and move to a country that I didn't even speak a word of English, all that, but also having to say goodbye to my brother when I was only 7 and he was 11 and never saw him again for like decades, things like that. Just, it's really tough for me to say goodbye. But as I'm in postmenopause, I am really appreciating the beauty of ending and the beauty of completion. But most of the times, we hear about moon cycles and everybody's like, yes, we're going to start thinking about our intentions and the next goal, and you're going to start writing down. And I'm like, hold it, people. What have you completed?
Mm.
What have you released? What have you been able to expand within you? And I think the moon has shifted so much in my life now that I'm in postmenopause, meaning I've shifted with the relationship that I have with the moon. And so the dark moon is the time when you really want to acknowledge who you are, especially those of you women out there in perimenopause and upward. Really, and younger too, but acknowledge and notice how far you've come through your challenges and traumas and rocky roads that you've been on, not rocky roads, ice cream. I've done that too, but just be really stop, pause, and recognize and get a little bit good at as you go into the second half of your life with ending and appreciating the cycles ending. So that's kind of the dark moon period. And I will say maybe a couple more things and then I can pause. So, we can go into conversations here. But dark moon phase is called the balsamic moon phase. And so I just want you to imagine like balsamic vinegar that you have at home and how that distillations, how that's made takes a long time to make balsamic vinegar as well. It's a beautiful art, and the density of that taste is pretty, powerful, right? In your mouth. You have to like dilute it with other things to eat it. You can't just pour that all over your salad and I mean, you could, but so the whole point of the balsamic moon phase is it's like you're tapping into what are you extracting? How are you going to become this gorgeous essence? Because you are attending to yourself again, reflecting on yourself and say, I am that distillation of who I am that I've come so far from. The decades and decades of who I am is what's showing up during the dark moon. And most of us just skip over that and say, what's next? What's next? I mean, if you live in the Western cultures, that is basically the message, right? It's like progress. What's next? What's your next plan? How are you going to go forward? But I think this is where growing up in Asian cultures have really helped me to balance the past and the future. And then I'll say one more thing about the word in Japanese is called Zen or Mae. Okay, Mae means both the past and the future. That one word means it holds both. So there's really no timeline in terms of I'm only linearly going forward. But one thing about the moon is that there's a past and the future, and it goes round and round and round. So it's that circular motions is what the moon is teaching us every time. So, I recommend you spend some time looking into what is the gift that the eye put into a bottle of your own choice of balsamic vinegar. What would that be? What would you add to your essence? What would be the bottle that can hold who you are, and squeeze out the essence, squeeze out the beauty into that and see what comes out of it, because that potency of who you are really surfaces during the dark moon. So please don't start writing things like my next intention is. Stop, everyone, especially women. Please stop this idea of what's next, what's my goal, how do I accomplish, how do I get to the next place, how do I manifest? It's like you've already manifested you've already manifested who you are up to this point. So first celebrate before you start to
I was gonna
scrutinize that goal again.
ask
Okay.
that, Masami, is that because it's almost like we're not honoring ourselves fully when we're running out to look for the next manifestation? I mean, many times, and I'm very guilty of just what's next, and going, okay, what's my next intention, without really stepping back and say, okay, I've just done this, or I just did that, or just be, like you said, the celebration, just have that win, and honor what we do, because a lot of times we do a lot to get things done and to have those celebrations and those wins.
And I do think it's also really important for us to have this essence of our vision that we're always have there, that we can attract forward. It doesn't have to be like, hey, it's beginning yoga, let's start an intention. I do think it's important for us to
Oh, yeah.
focus on that being energy of what we want to create in the world. Thoughts?
Oh,
Yeah, thoughts for
yeah,
you.
yes and no. Yes and no. I think it's just we need to pause a little
Yeah.
bit more, So this is the pause between the inhales and exhales, right? And then it's the pause between the exhale going into the inhale. So that's kind of what we're doing. And intentions are great. You can always hold on to it, but there are days that we need to just even have an empty hands, so the
Mm.
Rumi talks about the fists and the open hands. And if you're always open, then that's going to hurt. Try walking around with your hands like this all day long, or walk around with just like this all day long. So it's not either or. This is like a figure eight that's going on. It's always doing this, always doing this. And in the dark moon, it's just kind of like right in between. So it's a time of liminal space. It's the time of not knowing. So you don't even have to hold the intentions
That's
to me.
awesome.
Just to empty out the space a little bit. We're not good at emptying things out. I mean, goodness, my closet needs to be empty now. I was just looking at it yesterday. I was like, come on, how come I have all these sweaters I don't wear anymore? So it's kind of that liminal space of emptying out. It's not the time of you aggressively doing things either, but I think it's a time of clearing. It's a time of reflections. I think we don't reflect enough as a society. We are always constantly looking forward. So, I just pulled up a quote that I love. This one is Margaret Whitley or Weatherly. No, it's like I think Weatherly is how you say it, but she's an American writer and a speaker. But she says, without reflection, we go blindly on our way, creating more unintended consequences and failing to achieve anything useful.
Mm.
So it's okay to hold intentions, but maybe during a dark moon, hold it softly, hold it super lightly. So it's like if you scoop the water and you can still hold on to the water, but some of them will come through your fingers, right? That's kind of how I like to hold intentions during this time. So it's not so hard.
That's how money works too. I usually describe money like that. Look, you can't really hold on to an intention anyway. It's more about being a frequency that attracts. And I really feel like with money, money, it's like water. It literally is that same frequency, and you can't like put it in your hands, it'll just seep through. So I wonder if there's some frequency relation here
Interesting.
with currency and wealth with these cycles. Masami, you have some thoughts about that?
Well, I mean, I think you brought up the word currency, and that's
Mhm.
perfect, right?
So,
Currency, if you look up the definition of currency, I'm sure it includes flow
mm,
and movements, right?
Mhm.
It's the river. I mean, you look at the words like that, and then you know that you can't dam it up, or you can't have a dam break to the point that it's just flooding the whole entire village either, so it's just that middle way. I think I'm learning that more and more as I land deeper and deeper into the postmenopausal time. For me, is this used to be like, oh, middle way, what a cliche, it's like, oh, I've read plenty of books on Zen books and all these spiritual books on the middle way. And then I get it now. I get it so much more because it's the figure eight. It's this
Oh.
right as when you're coming into the middle. That's the middle way. And you swing far sometimes, but you come back in. You go to the other depth, but then you come back in, so currency is what life is about, and currency can be described as a flow. It could be your lymphatic system is flowing. It could be that the colon is moving through the toxins that you need to poop out in the morning. It could be the bladder that is working nicely. It could be the hormonal flow. It could be the lymphatic system in your brain that is flushing things out all throughout the night because you go to bed at a reasonable time and allow the different wavelengths to come in. So yeah, money to me is a friend, just as the drinking water is my soul friend. Air is a soul friend. Money is just another form of elements. It's just one of those elements. It could be earth, it could be air, it could be water, it could be wood, it could be metal. And money is a part of the metal, right? So in Chinese medicine, so it's just a part of that flow. And I think when you can live with this cycles of things, that there are such things as cycles in the world, circadian rhythm, circalunar rhythm, there's a tidal rhythms. They are waking, and so the sunlight and the darkness cycles, that comes from circadian rhythm, but there are rhythms within the Chinese organ clocks as well. It's like you want to get up at a certain time so that your lungs can do their jobs, and you want to wake up at a certain time or start moving so your colon can do its job. So there are always these movements. I think when we get stagnant in anything, food choices, eating the same thing all the time. I used to work with these clients that I had to fire them. I'm like, why are you not eating different things based on the season? But, I had this one yogini that just would come and see me, and she'd just be shivering. She's so cold, and she's drinking these like spinach and kale and celery juice in middle of January. And I'm like, that is not a flow, So I think moving through seasonality, and the money fits into one of those. So I don't separate money from anything else. Really, it's everything and anything. And when you start separating them and calling them, this is more important than the other thing, well, guess what? You can have all the money in the world. Okay, you could be $1 trillion in your bank, but if you don't have clean water, good luck to having the flow in your life, right? So I think money can be a part of the essence of that.
Yeah, I love how you put that. Well, let's talk a little bit about menopause here. This is a topic that I haven't really gone there because I hadn't hit that age where it meant anything to me, right? And now I finally hit that beginning of perimenopausal, and the only symptom I really have is a little less hair loss. So I'm doing okay, but I'm like, you know what? That's still a symptom that I'm not so loving about it. So I kind of want to just, where do we start with this conversation?
Well, I'm glad you're bringing this up because I think number one, the middle way conversation. So let's talk about that. So think of this figure eight kind of thing. So, but we do live in this society, especially in the Western society, where there's a lot of pressure, and I point this out to my husband all the time. I'm like, look at that actress versus look at that actor. It's like he gets to be all wrinkly and shriveled up like a, shriveled up plum. And he still is like making movies and everybody loves this actor. But then, oh my gosh, look at the women, the pressure we have to go through. So I think individually, we owe it to ourselves as well as to the community of women that are going to be going through menopause. This is one thing that is guaranteed for all of us, is that as women, we are going to go through, if you have a female body, you are going to go through perimenopause and menopause. And then after you stop menstruating for 12 months, you are officially in post-menopause. I mean, that's just how it is. But I think let's hold the expectations once again, not gripping. Okay. We're not going to have the same kind of hair that you had when you were 17 years old. You're just not going to.
Holding on
You're,
to it.
what is it?
I mean, as we talk about flow and currency and letting go and ending, I find myself wanting to hold on to my youth instead of embracing the now,
I get that.
right?
Right. So I think it's the figure eight thing. You're going to have days that you're like, oh my gosh, look at my neck. Like
It's so funny. I just said that
this morning.
Yeah.
I was telling my husband, I'm like, oh my gosh, the hormones do have impacts on me. And then so you go into this one extreme and you start like microscopically looking at your neck and pulling and going, what's going on? Right. And then you soften that stance a little bit and get, all right, it's all right, Masami. This is just a part of life. Okay. And then you can say, however, I have knowledge, right? So somebody that practices in the health field like I do, I have a tremendous amount of knowledge. And I want to share, okay, one of the things that you can do for your neck is really work on your progesterone. So then I pull out my progesterone, bioidentical progesterone cream, and I put that on my neck and my thyroid because my thyroid is loving the projection that's coming up. And what is it?
Yes.
That is coming into, see that there's a little brain fog that happens, that's all right. Progesterone cream loves to be around the neck. So I'm like, okay, well, I will do that. Right. And before I got on the call, I'm like, oh, you know what? For my brain, I probably should do just a little bit of the bioidentical estrogen. So I did E3 and E2, and I put that applications on a little bit of outside of the vaginal area. And that's the best way to apply bioidentical hormones. So I'm doing that so that my brain can function.
Wow.
Brain loves estrogen because there's estrogen receptor sites everywhere in your body, but brain especially needs that and love that. And progesterone also is very, very helpful for the brain function. So that's the balance that I'm talking about in terms of the figure eight, is that you can complain and you can look at it and you go, oh my God, well, there'll be a day that a couple of days out of the month, you're going to feel like, oh gosh, I am getting older. When I parted my hair this way today, because as many of you that have been following me, I part this way and that way, and I go back and forth, depends, right? But when I parted it, I saw, oh, here comes my white hair a little bit,
Yes.
And then I thought, oh, have I taken, have I been really keeping up with my zinc this week? And I thought, yeah, you know what? I've been doing a pretty good job with my zinc orotate. So I think I'm good this morning. So, I can kind of settle down my emotions around it. And so I acknowledge it. I see it. But I have a knowledge with the physiology. And that's, I think, the next cutting edge of body, mind, spirit, and soul, is that you become educated in what this is. This beautiful, beautiful, I don't even want to call it the vehicle. Okay.
Amazing.
This
Yeah.
gift that you get to occupy every day.
Mm.
Go out and learn. Go out and learn. Follow my work. Follow other people that are talking about this and learn as much as you can so that you don't get stuck in this side of the figure eight, but you get to come back around, and you will do it. You will do this. Okay.
That's fascinating.
We had a question on the chat that asked, what foods would you recommend during the dark moon cycle?
Ooh, such a good question. Okay, so the dark moon cycle time, you want to watch out a little bit with too much oxalic acid foods.
Write this stuff down. Like I
I know. Here, have a
I-
pencil.
Yeah, I'm a little bit of an walking.
We're putting some of this on the tweet.
Yeah, I'm a little bit of a walking encyclopedia. I'm sure the people that have been following me will let you know that. But yeah, so oxalic acid foods they tend to be nuts and seeds. So avoid those. I'm going to start with avoid. Okay.
Mhm.
So you want to do little less of that during the dark moon period. So too many nuts and seeds, I mean, if you want to go down that road of nuts and seeds, I'll be more than happy to take on that topic too. But I have to say that we are over consuming nuts and seeds.
Mm.
Okay. Without the preparation that the nuts and seeds require. So nuts and seeds are very high in these acids called oxalic acid that can bind with calcium and other minerals like zinc and magnesium. So you could be taking magnesium supplements, you could be doing magnesium liquids, you could be doing calcium, you could be doing D3, and you could be doing K2. But the thing is, maybe your bone density is struggling, then you do need to be looking at too much oxalic acid foods can bind with these very important macro minerals. And these are the electrolytes, really. So then you can start to experience like stiff joints around this time, the month of the moon cycles. You could be experiencing maybe bone issues. It could be osteoporosis, osteopenia, but you could be having arthritic things that will flare up. That's maybe partially you might be consuming too much nuts and seeds without soaking them.
Yeah.
And also you might be eating too much legumes and grains. So this is the time of the month that I would really encourage all of us women to cut back on that kind of consumptions and stop snacking on nuts and seeds. And even things like hemp seeds, chia seeds, those can be really tough on our bodies, particularly this time. So then what you want to eat is like, I love making really nice big pot of soup with roast in there. If you're going to do beans and things like that, you have to be soaking those beans, cook them really, really well. I would add a little, maybe a couple tablespoons of apple cider vinegar to cook it, or put a half a lemon and lemon juice in there to cook it if you're going to be eating beans this time the moon cycles. But making yourself really nice, roast and making soups and having good cooked vegetables, so you're not doing a bunch of salads.
Mhm.
Okay. When it's darkening, you don't want to be going for things that are so much raw. Okay. Raw salads are not meant to be eaten every day of the entire year, let alone in the cycles of the moon, right? And if you're in the northern hemisphere, not everybody's in the northern hemisphere, but is this the time that you should be eating a huge salad? The answer is no. Okay. We're still not in equinox. So I never do detox programs, cleanse programs in January and February. People are always like, oh, after the holidays, we have to do the cleanse and detox. And
You're
I'm
right.
like, are you nuts? This is the coldest time of the year, and you're going to put yourself through that kind of a stress? No. Right. So think of dark moon as like maybe in January and February kind of a sense, right? Then maybe that will help you to kind of understand what the dark moon is about.
And this kind of eating is good for any gender, correct?
Any gender,
Okay.
any gender. Yeah. But my clientele is mostly women now. I used to work with all men. How funny is that, right? When I used to have my own office in Denver area, it was 90, I counted, and I think percentage was about 96% were all men.
Mhm.
And the CEOs and government officials, and it's just like they were all men. And then now I have shifted, because I have shifted towards the feminine energy, because I was so pulled on this side
Mhm.
of the yang side, the masculine side, the right side, the bright side. There's nothing, I mean, this is nothing to do with gender per se, but I was so leaning towards the masculine energy that now that I'm embracing the moon, I am able to balance it so much more.
Mhm.
Mhm. I really adore having the men in this group. It seems like we've had quite a few men,
Mhm.
and you know, I just like embracing them. It's because it's nice to see, because what I used to have is all women, and now I've got more of a mixture, it seems,
Yeah, yeah.
this
Right.
series. Yes.
Right. So everything that I'm saying, minus probably the hormonal information I'm sharing, men want to follow that too, because then you can tap into your own inner balance too, your inner goddess.
And zinc actually helps men with semen.
Mm.
Yeah.
It's,
So,
yeah,
yeah.
and hormone, I think,
Mhm.
and isn't there a hormone component to that too? My husband takes that every day. He takes that and saw palmetto because I think it helps with the urinary tract
I love hearing y'all talk because she's a nutritionist by
by education.
yes, and obviously you have this really beautiful knowledge. So hearing you, it's almost kind of I'm like nerding out here because these are things, and in my culture, we don't necessarily we just cook for taste all the time, which is great, but it's not necessarily always serving the body. During COVID, we lost a lot of Latinos due to COVID because of the way I think because of the way we ate in our nutrition and stuff like that. So hearing you have these very
Yeah.
dynamic conversations, I'm like, wow, there's so much more education that is to be had for all.
Right. And I think that zinc, deserves a huge applause, but, and also we really should pause and talk about the zinc a little bit too.
Yeah.
Because zinc, I consider it to be a spiritual mineral.
Oh,
And
Nice.
it's when the sperm enters the egg, there's this spark that happens.
that's
And there's this literally, I mean, scientists have looked at this, and that spark gets triggered by the zinc. So it's we're seeing generations and generations, younger and younger generations that are having a lot lower sperm counts. And that's part of it is the lacking in zinc. But why do we get, and it's called palmetto. So saw palmetto is what that supplement that Jeneth is talking about, but that's really a must for prostate health
Yep.
and keeping the male organs really strong, gonads really strong. But saw palmetto can be used by women also. But, obviously work with your physicians. If you're working with me, you can always ask me and I'll muscle test you on that. But I do muscle test myself on saw palmetto once in a while because it has this really great properties that not just for men, but it can be very helpful for women's skin.
Mhm.
So I'm somewhat obsessed about skin because I grew up with a really poor skin, really bad skin. I had a lot of food allergies and my father struggled with his skin. And I just, when you're half Japanese and half really, really white, I know what genes I got mixed with, like what area is my father and what area is my mother. Like I could clearly see it in me. So the skin has always been a major, major trouble area for me because my father was so white that I would burn as a child. Like, and all my Japanese friends, they're looking at me like, what is going on with this girl? Like, she's like a cooked octopus, right?
oh,
So it was really, really tough. So I've learned a lot about the skin support, especially for as we get older. But coming back to zinc gets used up. Zinc does about 300 different things in the body, just so you know.
wow.
So zinc is not just for your gonads and, your skin, but zinc and the sperm counts, but actually zinc is necessary for your wound healing, right? So as you get older, your skin can get thinner and you can bump into something and you could bruise yourself very easily, or you could cut yourself very easily. Well, that's a sign that it's not only that you're low on vitamin C, but you're very low on zinc. But zinc gets used up if your blood sugar is dysregulated. So you're eating and snacking, your grazer all day long. Well, good luck to trying to keeping your zinc at the optimal level because zinc is going to get used up trying to balance your blood sugar, right? And then zinc is, I'm just telling you this out of my head. So, there's a lot more here, but let me tap into my head. So another thing would be zinc really helps with the premature aging signs. So hair, nail, eyes, skin, bones, all those things. So that's why if I notice that like a color discoloration starting to happen on my hair. And if I start to see that my hair is starting to show a little more redness, that means the pigmentation or my hair color is starting to deplete. That tells me that I need zinc. And there are particular, genetics that I'm starting to learn about DNA. So stay tuned, everyone. I'll be offering a DNA service as well at some point this year. But when you start to learn the DNA expressions, you can begin to understand, like, okay, there are certain people that need more zinc than other people. And I'm one of those people that need far more zinc than most people. So I pay attention to my hair, number one. Number two is my nails. Okay, so if your nails, and one of the first days questions that came in, I actually watched the first day, the show on a replay, and it was a question about the nails that would chip or thinning, break easily, that kind of thing. You have to look at zinc, but minerals overall, okay? Because your nails rely on minerals so deeply. But if you have any spots on your nails, you're chipping very easily, you got to look at zinc. But the zinc has this great relationship with the B vitamins, especially B1 and B6. So that's another thing you can look at. Okay. So, I mean, those are some of the things. I can go on and on, but I will pause.
Well, so I wanted to bring in collagen. Just when I had my stem cell therapy done on my hip, they told me to make sure that I always took a really high quality multi collagen. And the cool benefits on that was it did help my hair, but my nails became like rocks. It was just like, I never needed that to really trim them. They didn't break. It was just like they just kept growing. So I just wanted to bring that in. And also the other thing, bruising, bromelain has been bromelain was another one that I have really supplemented
I
with.
remember
So
when
covered supplements.
I remember when I saw you, it had been several months in between time, several, like almost close to maybe a year after you had started the collagen. And I remember before, and we were talking, and then I went to go, I guess we met up or whatever, and I was like, Jeneth, I mean, her face was glowing. Her
The skin is good with
like all around the
collagen.
eyes.
I
I don't
love
think she
that
knew
stuff.
it because it was so
No,
subtle.
she
But
was
I was
like,
like, dude, what are you
doing?
doing? I mean,
And at the time, that was about all I was taking. I do take a few more things regularly now, but it was mostly
I
that
went out and bought some.
multi-collagen. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
because it was like they were like, you have to take this on a regular basis because it kind of feeds the stem cells and helps the degeneration of that joint. So just wanted to add that too. We did have
So,
a
I mean,
question about.
collagen production goes down, right, as you get older. So, but I think collagen is great. And the side note is that not everybody can handle
Mm.
everyday collagen. So just be aware of that. If you have expressions of herpes and viral expressions, you have to be a little bit careful about the daily consumption of collagen. So if you do start to notice that's getting triggered, you may want to pull back on that. So, and then that's when precursors or building blocks for collagen becomes very important, right? So that's when B vitamins, zinc, vitamin C, and adequate protein. Those are the things that you really want to look into. If you cannot consume collagen very easily and you do have some of these expressions of viral expressions that come up, then you want to do the precursors. You want to do the building blocks of it so that you're not going straight to collagen.
Interesting. Thank you.
We did have a question on the chat that can your hair color be reversed with zinc?
Absolutely. Mine reverses all the time.
Oh, I love
Okay.
that.
All the time. I mean,
Make sure and you have to make sure you take zinc after food, from what I know too. Like it works with food, plus it can make you ill if
A little
you
bit
take it
dizzy.
on an empty stomach.
Yeah, I had that.
Is that true?
so it is. Zinc does better in the afternoons.
Okay.
And zinc actually does really well with food. But once your gut begins to heal and then you have a healthier gut lining, you will find yourself able to take zinc on an empty stomach and you don't have any issues. So if you're having zinc that you take and you feel nauseous,
Mhm.
that isn't the zinc's fault, actually. It's something going on in your gut that is impacting how you process these things.
Mhm.
Okay, so and then there's so many forms of zincs out there, right? So I talk about this all the time in my calls and things, but the form that I'm really using these days is called zinc orotate, because orotate is the form that you can absorb the best. So
Fabulous. Wow.
yeah.
Do you uh do we want to kind of go into some energetics here, or would you like to
Sure.
take some questions? What's your
Wherever you want to go, wherever I balance both, right?
yeah.
Um, Science and spirit. So you could go anywhere in this figure eight. Let's go.
Yeah. Well, and this talking about this ending of this flow cycle, this currency. Um, let's talk a little bit about, what it takes to surrender. Would that be the word? And if you lead it, maybe, Masami. I mean, I feel that that's kind of where I'm feeling surrendered to the moment,
Mm.
just in this conversation almost. It seems kind of there's this beautiful flow of frequency. Um,
Yeah, I mean, I do love that you brought that up. I think you're hitting a really kind of a sacredness of the dark moon, right? And when you use the word surrender, I mean, I think if you've done years and years of spiritual work on yourself and you've worked on your own upbringings and you've done a lot of ancestral healings, that word surrender does not trigger anything negative anymore, but when you hear the word surrender and you go, oh crap, or ooh, that's a little bit sharp sounding words for me, or there's like a prickliness to it, then that gives you the chance to say, all right, well, that is the area that I can maybe look at a little bit deeply during my dark moon, because it's cosmically, naturally, physiologically, biologically, psychically, a very welcoming time to surrender, actually. So I wouldn't do a surrendering practice when we're heading towards the full moon, because then you're kind of going against the rhythm of things, right? That's why I love the moon cycles, because there's a time and place for us to do sitting meditations, quieting down, silencing yourself, and using some of that surrender practices depending on who you are. But for me, using the dark moon period for that is even so much more powerful, and you can go into it with ease. But this is where I think women just innately know that, but a lot of these practices that are being taught, they don't bring this into to the equation, right? So it's like you're doing surrender practice every day, or trauma work for 3 months straight. I mean, I work with so many clients that I have to say to them, could you just let go of working on your traumas for this next couple of weeks? When the moon is waning, could you please stop doing all that? And some of them don't listen. And some of them will come back to me 3 months later and say, oh my gosh, you're right, Masami. I have lost it. Like, I went for it for 3 months. I signed up for this 3 months trauma work, and I've been doing all this energy work, and I've been clearing my chakras every day for 3 months, and I'm a mess. And I'm like, yeah, because who wants to clear out your closet every day for 3 months?
right? Well, I do think there's a
Yeah.
season for doing
Yeah.
that.
Mhm.
But people who are like, heal me, clear me, heal me, I really think, okay, well, there's something deeper going on in the psychology of you. And maybe this, is not the time to be cleared and healed. Maybe now is the time to just even collect awareness of these like mental constructs, right? That might be causing you, quote, dis-ease in your life. as I've evolved in this work and through personal development, I really found that my focus has been more on, how is this creating a greater life for me today? And sometimes that evolution goes, how does this create a better life for me, 6 months from today too? It's
Mhm.
not that, instant gratification necessarily. It's really what creates a great life for me today. And I find that sometimes you have to go, oh, something triggered me, and let's look at that. But in general, I think people who are constantly wanting clearing or,
We're working on the
yeah,
trauma.
or
Hmm.
make me talk to my angels and call in my angels, I really think there's something deeper going on to that. And,
I think,
opening more.
sometimes the angels need days off too.
Oh.
Agreed.
Right.
Absolutely.
So just as your guys need refueling, so many of us are running on fumes.
Mm.
And, that can be said about the cosmic world as well. That's what the moon talks to me about. She and I have conversations all the time, like daily, and then I just ask her for help. And she says, listen, I'm half lit up right now. So stop with all your questions. Yeah, and I'm waning right now. I'm quieting down. So please just stop with all these explorations. And that's something that I'm learning. I'm just humbled by her teachings for me. She is my teacher and I bow deeply to her. I'm unable to talk about all things and then put it through the moon cycles if she wasn't guiding me through this and if I didn't surrender to her calling, because she called on me in December of 2019 and I was like, what? I'm
Oh,
supposed to start talking to you, Moon? And she's like, yes, you're going to start learning about me. And she said, you're going to learn the science behind me. You're going to learn the biology and physiology behind what I am able to do. And I thought, wow, and when you pause and think about it, we don't have seasons, like 4 seasons on this earth if we didn't have the moon
mhm.
Or ocean waves.
or ocean waves, the tides. So when you start to look at it, she started saying, look around, Masami, what are some of the things that's made in fours? And I was like, oh, 4 limbs? She's like, yes. And I was like, 4 major lobes in your brain? Yes. What about the 4 chambers of your heart? I was like, oh my God, oh my God. This is
Amazing.
Even the earth has a latitude and a longitude and also the vertical, whatever, the hemispheres, right? It's
right.
funny, yesterday we talked with Carrie Hummingbird and she talked about the four directions, the north, south, east, and west. It's interesting that you've brought that up again, because I had never quite paid attention to fours until right now.
But you did, but the very first time I met you, you were giving a talk on all the different
Oh, right.
elements.
Yeah.
So I thought that
Hmm.
was pretty fascinating as well.
Yeah,
But we
wood.
didn't. But to look at the fours in the way that the moon asked you to, how did you develop that relationship with the moon? How did I
Mm.
mean? That's just
I didn't develop it. She
how did
just
she call you?
She called you.
Can you tell us a little bit about?
Ring!
Yeah. I mean, one night I opened the curtain and I looked and she goes, you're ready. And I was like, what am I ready for? I have no clue what you're talking about. And she's like, you're going to learn about me. And I was like, okay, just give it to me. So then things started trickling in, coming in. And now I'm like, I think of something and I start looking it up. So I'm going down deep into the scientific understanding of it. And then she's been saying to me, she's like, I am forgotten.
I was gonna
And
say, not a lot of people are talking about this, and that's why I'm like almost jumping to the camera because I think this is so fascinating. And she knew that was needed.
yeah, and she knew that she wanted her, I mean, she may contact others as well. So stay tuned.
You
But
can fill in.
when she contacted me, because I'm not the only one. I mean, there are other ways to look at moons too. But when she touched, she really reached into me. She said, you're going to bring the scientific biology and physiology side of me, meaning the moon, into this, so that we're not just talking about the moon from the ceremonial way.
Yeah.
She says there are plenty of people that are talking about the folklores and folk tales and myths, and she said, but there, you don't understand. I am with you. I control so much of what happens in you. And I'll give you another really amazing example that I'm learning, because I'm digging deep into the scientific studies. And I will give, before I do that, I want to tell you one of the things that I'm bumping up against, which is so, I try to hold two things because I'm East meets West, right? Because I grew up in a totally different culture than the Western culture. I have to hold both. I am not just one or the other. And when I was growing up, the names that the people usually called people who are, they will call me mutts and things like that, mixed child, all that. But one of the things that they used to call me, and they still do, it's called half. Like I was called, you're a half. And I really dislike that term because I'm not half of anyone. In fact, I could be the double of you. So I worked so hard to, speak this language as my second language and to maintain my Japanese heritage and my Japanese language. So I worked really hard. So for me, balancing two cultures, two things come naturally, as well as it's something I lean into. And so when I started to study the moon, it's called circa lunar cycles, I started to realize there's so much cultural bias behind this. So the people that do study moon in the scientific fields are all located in mainly Middle East, Russia, Eastern European countries, Japan, Korea, China, India. Those are the places that they go and study how the moon cycles impact human biology and physiology, and hormones, and oxytocin productions and melatonin decrease and increase in the brain size and so on. So all those have been studied, but they're oftentimes not studied in North America and Western Europe. And I started digging into it. And then there's this one author that wrote like a Moonstruck or something. She's a biologist, maybe marine biologist. And she even said in one of her interviews that us scientists get ridiculed when we study moon. And so I thought to myself, you know what? I'm not a doctor. I'm not a scientist. So I can go down that road and I don't have to be afraid of being ridiculed. That's why I took on this role of studying moon, not just from a ceremonial perspective, not only from Ayurvedic standpoint, which, I'm trained in Ayurveda. So it's very important that the moon cycles come into that. But I wanted to bring the Western understanding, meaning scientific understanding of how the lunar cycles impact us. So I mentioned, a few, but even melatonin productions go down quite a bit leading up to the full moon. And melatonin is like curable, really. It's a hormone, is a neurotransmitter. All roads lead to melatonin, and melatonin is now being studied. And, hopefully nobody's going to make drugs out of this. But basically, this cutting edge studies are coming out saying the melatonin is going to help women with osteoporosis, women with bone density issues as we go into postmenopause. So I thought, wow, this is awesome. But if you could harvest the moon cycles with it, you can actually implement these recommendations based on the moon cycles, when to, increase your melatonin, when to pull back on the melatonin. Can you see how amazing this can be the bridge to the medical fields, to how we give people medicine? And, pharmaceutical medicines can be absorbed better at a certain time of the moon cycles than the other time. So why are we doing the medications and supplements at the same time every day, 365 days per year? That must change too. So that's where I'm going with it.
Well, and I think one of the speakers I listened to says Mel puts you to bed and Sarah gets you up in the morning, meaning when the light, hits our eyes, that literally triggers serotonin. And, I've always thought of those two as that balance, right? Of hormones, right? They're both hormones, serotonin in the morning and melatonin at night. So it's just a
That's a
way
good
to
way to
think of
remember
it.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, Sarah and Mel.
Yeah, so, along that line, I think this is what I'm really understanding about the circulunar versus, and maybe it's not even versus, and circadian rhythm is that we operate with both. So that what circadian rhythm gives you is a day-to-day, like what Jeneth just said about the serotonin and melatonin and also cortisol, right? So that cycles is about generally daily cycles. But what we've done is that we've only focused on the daily cycles. So the solar impact, the yang impact, you could call it the masculine impact. But what we need to do is, like, let's say I said to both of you, I said, well, let's get on the call at noon and Eastern time. And you'll be like, well, that sounds nice, but what day of the month are we going to have that call, right? So what day of the month are we going to have that call is the circumlunar's impact, right? So we hold both. It's
Wow.
time and the month, time and the day of the month. So that's how we are operating constantly, but we tend to ignore this side and we go this side. So it's the same thing, I mean, I don't want to be ranting here, but well, I am a little bit. So I'm going to rant one more
Love
thing.
it, love it, love
This is the
it.
place to do
It's
it.
that it's the spiritual community that is so addicted to ascension and light. Darkness is
And
just
that's it. I mean, which
so addicted to it. This is why I wanted to bring up the dark moon period. The darkness is when we heal. Darkness is when our cells can heal. Darkness is when your wounds can actually surrender and heal. This is when you don't do more digging. This is when you don't put more salt on your wounds, but you allow the darkness to heal you. So there's an interesting scientific studies that came out a couple of years ago, and it just blew my mind, is that when the cancer cells become more aggressive, they actually emit light. Okay. They don't go dark, they emit more light. So are we chasing after something without understanding the balance of the yin? It's that figure eight again. Why are we getting stuck on the light over and over and over, chasing light, chasing ascension, chasing, something that'll take us up? It's like stock market. We always want to just go up. Well, you know what? You don't have up without the down. So that's what we're talking about. Going down, I'm more interested in waking down than in waking up as I go into my postmenopause years more and more.
I think so yeah, I'm gonna bring in like a movie that I saw. It was a Marvel movie, but it was, the antagonist was a woman, and she had a shadow side of her, and it wasn't till the very end scene where she also had a mother side of her, and the mother side of her went in and hugged the antagonist side of her, that shadow side, and it wasn't till they integrated that darker shadow that changed everything, right? So that they could have that compassion, and of course the world was saved. But I think that there is a narrative there that you are very much speaking to, but we are almost missing it sometimes by only wanting to see the light, right? Like I think that there's a little bit of collective that sometimes, and maybe you could talk on it, we just chase, like you said, chase the light, but then almost like, oh, that's negative, that's dark feelings, and I don't want to feel those feelings. I was told to raise my vibration. How do you
Right.
look at that?
Right. So the very first thing that we have to really taste it and chew on it and then swallow it and make it into part of your cellular knowledge is that the darkness is just the light that you cannot see.
yeah.
That's it. That's all that is. It's not good. It's not bad. It's none of that.
And it's not shadow. I mean, the way that the spiritual community uses shadow is different than dark. Um, and I think that's important to say.
I agree.
Right.
I
Wonderful.
I have
Wonderful.
kind of a weird woo question. Um,
Yeah.
I have so I follow this group of in Access Consciousness, and they said that the dark side of the moon is speaking to us now, and it's time to embrace the dark side of the moon so that it can grow in consciousness. Do you know anything about this? I just was wondering if you picked up on this too. Okay. Well, I just thought
Well,
I'd.
no, I mean, I think all of us are, if you tuned into it enough, I think you are noticing that. And the fact is, the NASA and in other countries are sending rockets and little ships to the dark side of the moon right now.
Right.
That is the hottest real estate on this cosmic world right now, is the dark side of the moon. So I think it's not just happening in the spiritual community, but it's really quickly happening in the the exploration side of the science. Yeah.
Yeah. Later in the series, we're talking with a woman named Isha who actually does galactic channeling herself, and she also has worked to interview UFO researchers to kind of validate what she's actually knows from her knower.
Right.
And I
Well,
think,
so
you're doing the same.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's we can't deny that there are other forms of intelligence out there.
Oh, there are people
And
out there that can deny it.
well, I don't think this community is
No.
denying it, and then I think that's what we're going to see more and more this year in the year of the dragon, right? Is that we're going to see these really different views of the deep down underground stuff is going to come up, as well as way up in a cosmic level intelligence are going to start to resurface again. So, and for once again, it's not anything new under the sun, but it's certainly new to our generation. It's new to this time in its history. So it's a very exciting time to be alive. And I think if you can work on your own inner health, inner cosmic flow, like I call it, right? If you can work on your cosmic movement of different organs and support that journey, you can become a true conduit. And I think that's what ended up happening to me, is after years and years of working on my own physiology and clearing heavy metals and clearing toxins and clearing stuck bile, I could speak to the moon, because she was always speaking to all of us, but I couldn't hear her. So I took care of this conduit, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And I want to take some callers, but do you want to talk
Right.
about the package since you just mentioned bile?
Sure, let's talk
Yeah,
about
do
that.
you want to talk about, let me bring it up, and I just thought it was
Are we? I'm
so
sorry, it's live call, and are we allowed to like take a little stand up and then go pee break, like 1 minute? Are we allowed to do
most
that?
definitely
Yes.
we can
That's what we
entertain
do.
this.
Because when women sit too long, our xenoestrogen levels increase. So I think it might be good to just take I know it's alive, and I'm
No,
sorry.
Shake it
Okay.
off. It's too bad we don't have the
It's all
music
about us.
actually working
Yeah.
today.
So I'm gonna shake it off, and I'm just gonna go pee, and I'll be back in like 1 minute. So
Great.
see you soon.
Perfect.
Is there any questions that what's
Yeah, that
coming
we
up for
can
anyone?
answer too. I just here, I'm gonna stand up too. Let's vinyasa together.
So if there's any
Too
questions,
bad I didn't wear my watch. I could have gotten credit for that.
That one stand.
That one stand. So many questions.
What's coming up? Is any comments? What is this bringing up for you? I know for me, the one thing that I keep getting is that, girlfriend, you got to do more with this body, and
Yes.
I got to learn more about just leaning into implementing some of the things that she's talking about, some of the things that you've even recommended to me, because you've seen how I've struggled
Yeah.
with my body and my gut.
Oh my gosh. So I think Lyanca has leaky gut. And I had once had that and went to an acupuncturist that had almost cured this within 2 or 3 weeks. So I just
I can't even imagine what it would be like
to not have that.
No, I mean I've had issues since I was a kid.
Yeah.
Eventually
But
quit.
and it can also be an emotional thing that
Oh,
you've
sure.
created it from. It probably is an emotional thing that you created
you
it
read
from.
that, huh? But I'd like
Let's see
to
if I can find
not have that anymore, and I would also like to support that
Yeah.
neutrally as well, right?
Yeah, really go down on the journey
But
for.
what are we talking about?
Oh, Lyanca, I think she might have some leaky gut.
She
ju-
knows I do.
yeah,
She's
but yeah, I know she
Well,
does.
I mean, okay, so I have to disclaimer everyone. Everybody's got leaky gut.
That's
Okay.
what I thought.
And the fact is you
Really,
get
because I feel
you
like
get you get leakier at certain time of the month as well as certain season as well. And depending on what your stress is. So, number one, it's like it's just it is a part of our journey also. So everybody gets SIBO sometime in a year. Okay. Everybody gets kind of inflamed, leaky gut issues, certain time of the seasons, so again, hold it lightly because that's going to also help with the healing process as well.
Hmm,
Thank you.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, it seems that she's had some success with some Western meds, but even when we were working day in, day out, when in what 2011,
Mm-hmm,
2012, it was just like, I just felt so bad for her because I remembered what it was
mm-hmm.
like to constantly have something bothering me. One time I did tofu because I didn't know any better. And like every afternoon, my belly would be like a Buddha belly,
That's what I get.
just like fill up with air and
Well, I mean, Lianca, reach out to me,
parasites. It
you
could be
know,
parasites too.
yeah, reach out to me, Lianca, because that's the work that I do, right? So, but one thing that leaky gut might be interesting topic for menopause, perimenopause, menopause, and postmenopause is that we have tremendous amount of estrogen receptors in our gut lining. So as we get older, women will tend to have a little bit more gut issues that will creep up more than ever before. Okay. So that's another thing that you want to pay attention to in terms of estrogen. But, leaky gut can be fixed. And because gut lining renews itself within 3 to 9 days. So if you can eliminate some of the, harmful, who knows, and it could be some supplements, sometimes it could be foods, but maybe your upper GI issues. A lot of people that follow me know that I always talk about north to south. I never work on your gut, meaning small intestine, until I work on your stomach. And I don't work on the small intestine until I work on your stomach and pancreas, gallbladder, and then your liver. You cannot go down to the small intestine and just hyper focus on that. That is the more of a circadian rhythm kind of energy. I hope you can feel that. Right.
Yeah, beautiful. All right, do you guys, if you have questions, go ahead and queue them up. You just have to raise your hand on Zoom and we will take some live callers that can ask questions. If you have asked things in the chat that you want to make sure that we address, go ahead and put it back in the chat. Masami, let's go ahead and share your offer while we queue up some callers.
Carrie says, I resonate so much and have, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Can we
Sorry,
talk about our offer before we
Yes,
queue up
yes.
some callers? Okay, cool. Thank you. All right. Oh, wait. Are you seeing the right screen here? We're not?
We're seeing the top of, there you go. You're good now.
Okay, cool. All right. I was so impressed with this offer. And I don't know. I just think I just think Masami is magic. So,
She's been
of
talking
course,
about-
this would be pretty magical.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about it or how do you want to do this?
You go ahead.
Well, so this was, inspired, like this was definitely a download for me when I created this. And this is the course that I recommend anyone that wants to know about my work, and you say, I want to go deeper into this is the one that I recommend. So cosmic flow is the word that came to me one day and said, I was having a dream. And in this dream said, you got to talk about cosmic flow, especially you're going to work around the flow of things in your body. And so I created 4 Bs. And if you scroll down, you could see what Bs mean. So I start the first session with the breath. And so I studied breath work for decades. And I studied with this one amazing teacher in New York City and, doing yoga therapy. And I'm a certified yoga therapist as well. So done so much breath work, but breath is how I entered into the world of yoga. So pranayama was my entry point, not asana. So not movements, but it was breath because I could barely move. I was in a really bad place and the breath changed my life. So I always, of course, I wanted to start with the breath. But I talk about not just the breath work as an inhale, exhale, but the particular way that you get to know your own signature breaths, because you want to understand, just like your fingertips, have your own signature circles, right? Your fingerprints, you have your own fingerprints in your breathing patterns. So I'm not a fan of guided breathing in terms of take an inhale, everybody follow me, and then everybody follow me as I exhale. Like I don't do that because it's not my breath, it's your rhythm. So I want you to get to know your breath. So then you can create more flow. And then the second one is all about the brain. And brain, as in brain, becomes so important as you go into menopause and postmenopause and perimenopause as well. But we have higher rates of Alzheimer's in men, women do. And it's really scary what's coming out right now in statistics. 1 in 2 women end up getting diagnosed with some kind of dementia or Alzheimer's by the time they're like 65 and older. So just be aware. So the brain session is all about how do you drain the brain, but drain the brain of karmic looping, drain the brain of any kind of a ruminating thoughts. And even like you've done trauma work, but if you haven't worked on your brain and decrease the congestion in your brain, you're going to be just going back to the same trauma over and over and over because you have not cleaned out the brain. So that's the second one. And the third one is my favorite because this is when this particular dream I started talking to you all about came to me and said, you are going to talk about this golden elixir. And I'm thinking to myself, what is this golden elixir that I'm supposed to talk about? And the dream goes, it's called bile. And I'm like, what? I'm supposed to talk about the bile? Like, you mean the nasty bile? And then the dream is like, yes. So I started studying about the bile more and more and more. And I realized how many of us, men and women, struggle with bile stagnation and sludgy bile that can turn into gallstones. So even your gallbladder has been removed. This is a fantastic, especially if your gallbladder has been removed. Please take this so that you can learn how to support your bile flow. Bile is amazing. It's golden elixir that it's cleaning you out of viruses, parasites, excess estrogen, maybe heavy metals, some of your anger and agitations and frustrations that have been accumulating in your liver, and the gallbladder that when it squeezes and the bile collects them, you can finally let go so you can become this cosmic flow. And the fourth one is the boundaries, and boundaries in a way that you've never, ever learned before. Okay, so I'm not talking about the regular boundary practices that maybe some of you have done in the past, but it's all about the small intestine. So this is when I talk about the leaky gut, because when you have leaky gut, or in the medical terms, it's called gut permeability. But when you have permeability in your small intestines, your boundaries get really compromised. So I give you supplements recommendations, I give you food recommendations, I give you exercises, movements, tools. Anybody that's taken my courses would attest to this, that I give a whole lot of tools so that you can take it with you and you can become the expert of you on this earth. And then it goes on, I believe, right?
And then no, that's the last we've got of that. But if you've
Oh,
got more
no,
to
no, no.
give us, we could
So
add it
click
to the
on, I
package.
would go ahead and click on the
Here's some
button because it goes up to
testimony.
her page, correct?
Oh, yes.
So she's
Does it
probably,
go?
Oh, no, no, no. So I sent you. Well, I'm sorry
Okay.
that's
Oh,
not it.
oh,
I have energy
and then
medicine
you've got this
toolkit.
energy medicine bundle.
Yeah, the toolkit is amazing. I have about 12 no, like 7 chakra meditations. I have a balancing 2 wings, the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous system balance, tree meditation around liver and gallbladder. I do breath work digestive to strengthen digestive, and coming home to your body meditation. I have a Soham meditation. I have a free energy medicine and healing summit interview from the Shift Network. I mean, the list literally, there you go.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
There you go. Where did you
Yeah,
find that?
yeah.
Okay.
It was
Yeah,
there. It was
yeah.
there. It was just on the little funny little
Wait,
link that we gave for you.
yeah, I think when we
I'm like,
initially
wait,
talked,
no,
we
no, no.
initially,
I piled it on
I
there.
Yeah.
Yes.
love it. Oh my gosh, thank you. Wow.
So
Yeah, no, this is like
Huge
a
package.
10 plus hours of meditation. And I have, yeah, so 12 meditation kit, energy medicine healing summit interview. I have a downloadable PDFs for each session, with like so much that you can take in. So do it slowly, maybe do one B at a time every month, kind of a thing. But each 4B sessions, it's like each of them is at least an hour and a half or longer. So yeah, it's a really a huge bundle. So I wanted to put it all together.
Thank you for doing that. Wow, 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 wow.
you and the moon have been busy. No, but
Yeah, I mean, she's a great
Great.
partner. Yeah, she's a great partner. So
of course,
join us. Yeah,
That's so cool.
it is
Okay,
really
you
cool.
guys. Um,
good. It's all there. It's
let's
all there. So that's
we're
good.
gonna take a few questions on the chat. Do you want to read them, Lianca?
Yes, let me go back over there. Let's see. Oh, someone says, I've taken this course from Masami. It's life changing. Oh, I
Oh,
have pages and pages of exercises. I mean, you saw me writing right now. Tips, I highly recommend this course, someone said. And I wanted to go back to that question that I was looking at a second ago, if I can find it. But
From Carrie. I think it's from Carrie. It's up
Carrie,
about
if
4.
I've lost your question, you can put it.
It's right here.
Okay, you can read it.
I can't though, because
Oh, I'm sorry.
my glasses aren't really right.
Okay, let's see.
Oh,
She
here.
says, I resonate so much, and I've been inside this dark mood feeling the dichotomy of what my body needs, but decades of pushing myself, no matter what, how bad I feel, I'm learning to honor my body, and now seeing the cycle brings illumination to what I've been experiencing. And it says, I think she just wanted you to kind of talk on that maybe. Is that, is that what she is experiencing, that illumination, now that she's kind of able to see those cycles?
I would think so. Yeah. I mean, you're seeing the light that you cannot see in the darkness. So that's where you start. That's like a germination period, right? Your seed has been planted and you're under the ground. So don't dig it up too fast, right? Allow the process to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful.
And then let's see. Masami, you don't like salad in winter. What do you think about microgreens such as sweet pea in the winter from like a local hothouse?
Not really, because why are you eating that when it's not in season? That's not in season. And the fact that it came from hothouse, that's, to me, that's not living with the seasons. This is the time of the year that I love making cabbage soups, right? Because cabbage family are so happy to be alive right now. So eat the ones that are happy right now. Yeah.
And who doesn't
That
like
makes
toasted
sense.
Brussels sprouts?
Right. With some garlic. Yes. If you can handle. Yeah.
And butter.
Sounds good right now. Masami, I've heard you say that to use iodine for nail fungus. I've been doing that for over a month and there hasn't been any improvement. Do you have any more suggestions for this?
Yeah, you have to work on your gut. You have to work on your diet. This is when things get complicated. You can't just like say, you said to put in iodine and that's going to resolve it, because fungus issue is north to south. So if you watched my most recent supplement call, and if you haven't, please do, because if your digestion is off in your stomach, you're going to not able to create an environment lower than that in the small intestine that is healthy for your microbial balance to happen. You're always going to have fungus and yeast and mold and parasites and other viruses that are going to coexist with you with other bacteria, but you need to be really, really working on your whole entire body and using, like Richard chimed in, and that's what I was going to say, but you've really got to take hydrochloric acid with each meal that you take. So betaine hydrochloric acid, I get it from Zorex, but those are the things that you need to be doing, because by the time it's showing up on your toe nails or a fingernail fungus, that's a systemic fungal issues. Generally it's not localized. It's actually systemic. So you need to take care of your bile. The bile chapter on that 4B cosmic flow course will be perfect, because then you learn how to take care of your bile flow. And, most women are stagnant in the bile flow. I have yet to meet, including myself, that have really good bile flow. And so I would start with all those levels. So it's not just one, just doing iodine and it's not working. Well, maybe you need to ingest iodine. Almost everyone is low on iodine in this country,
Yes.
right? In
And
Western
it's so
society,
important for breast health too.
right? For everything, because iodine is used by every cell in your body. Every cell needs iodine. So just applying iodine alone to localize, because fungal overgrowth in your body will show themselves in your nails. So it's a systemic issue, not a localized. Localized issue is usually like bug bites, spider bites, maybe accident. Those are localized issues. But if something is chronic, that's systemic in most cases.
Right.
Love
Yeah.
that. Wow.
Any better time of the moon cycles to apply the hormones that you mentioned earlier, since there is no menstrual cycle?
Yeah. So, I do go into a lot more details about that. I'm planning on doing a course on that. So I would love for you to look into it. I'll be announcing that shortly. But, in general, the leading up to the full moon, you will want to support your estrogen. And then leading towards away from the full moon. And when you are midway towards the new moon, that's when you want to support your progesterone.
You
Interesting.
you talked about some stuff that you put on your neck, the hormone.
Progesterone.
Yeah. Do you
Oh,
have
yeah.
a specific one that you suggest?
So, this is when it gets into the bioidentical hormone,
Yeah.
right? So I don't want to be like pulled out of or the YouTube or any of these recordings to get shut down. So
Sure, sure.
I
We'll
don't
wait.
want to I don't want to go into it too much,
I got
but if you do work with me, I will check your bioidentical hormones. Yes, I do use the one from Zorex.
you.
So Zorex International, you can look that up on my website, but that's the one that I use. It's a really natural formula. I mean, bioidentical hormones should be always natural, but not all bioidentical hormones are made equally. Some of the fillers are horrible. Like some of the carrier oils they use are just awful. So make sure to take a look at that. I also do recommend maybe Quicksilver ones too, but that application, when to put it on and how much to put it on, I have to muscle test you individually. So this is where I don't want to give a blanket statement. This is the how much pump for everybody, right? Because hormones are very bio individual. So we have to respect that side of us, so that's the circadian rhythm versus circulunar, right? I can give you a general statement of, as we're leading up to the full moon, estrogen, as going away, progesterone. I can say that because that's kind of a natural big picture, but how much to apply, what to apply, from what companies, things like that, that becomes more of the time, right? So it's like, we're going to meet at noon. It's that kind of thing. It's like, this is how much pump you need for you. So that's going to be different. So I recommend you work with, people that have been doing a hormone work, but also they're knowledgeable in how to support you throughout the cycles.
Okay.
Do you want to read a couple more, or are we about to wrap?
Oh, here's one good
Masami,
one.
do you have time? I know we've gone really
Yeah.
long today.
Oh,
Maybe
I'm fine because I stood up, so I can stand for like next 3 hours, but I know the next person's coming in a half an hour. So
yeah, and I have to let out this little puppy.
That's true. One more, I think we'll take one more just because it's the, do you suggest anything for someone that has an allergy to iodine?
So allergy to iodine is an interesting one because if iodine is used by every cell,
Oh,
right,
interesting.
it's hard to say that if you are really allergic to iodine, or maybe you need to do some detoxifications first, right? And there's iodine and there's iodide. So you might be allergic to more of the orangey color one, iodine, instead of the liquid, clear kind of the iodide. So you have to identify which iodine are we talking about. And the really good book that maybe all of you want to look into, and I always have like a book recommendations on my recommendation page as well. But one is called Iodine, why we need it and why we can't live without it. And it's from Dr. David Brownstein. So that might be a good book to look at it. And so instead of just looking at I am allergic to it, therefore, I would go so that's the dark side of the moon, right? That we're doing. We're not just looking at where the moon is lit up, but you take your journey to the dark side of the moon and say, why am I reacting to iodine when iodine is used by every cell in my body, and your thyroid loves it, your adrenals love it? Without the iodine, our quality of our lives will be so dwindled and lowered. So that's the dark side of the moon journey that you may want to take with your physicians or people that you're working with.
Fabulous.
I'm glad I
Wow.
asked. Yeah.
You guys, I am putting the special offer in the chat if you are looking for that. And I want to thank you, Masami. Oh my gosh, this has been absolutely phenomenal. Thank you. And we'll have her back when
Please.
whoever it's time again. Seems like we seem to know when it's time.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for having me.
Thank you. And you guys, if you are looking for the special offer on the replay, it's somewhere on this page. If you're watching this on YouTube, it'll be in the caption.